Hey guys, it's Tahira, and today I'm doing a little recommendations video. So specifically today I'll be recommending books I think are binge worthy, or which basically means like books that I think are great to read in like 1 or 2 sittings. Basically books that are like so good that you just can't put it down. So I have 7 books to talk about today, and I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. The first book I'm gonna talk about is a book that I just talked about in my last video as well. My recent reads if you want to check that out, but that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So this book follows a man named Jason who is living this life with his son and his wife, and one day he goes out to get drinks with some friends, and on the way home he gets kidnapped. And then after he wakes up from this kidnapping, he realizes that his life that he wakes up to is completely different. So then the whole story is about him trying to figure out what's going on and what life was really his real life. Based on the premise, you could probably guess that this is like a thriller novel, and I think this is a really great one to read or like binge read, is because just the aspect that it's thriller. And I truly think that this one is really interesting in the way that it talks about some like, again, I've talked about this before, but how I don't know how real like the science and physics is, but the way it's talked about in here is really interesting. And basically his like journey and quest to figure out what's really happening to his life and everything is, I think, really fast paced. And I think ultimately, at least for me, what a great like binge read is something that's like really fast paced, so it keeps you on the edge of your seat, which makes you makes you want to keep reading. So I think this is a really good contestant for that because of that thriller aspect of him trying to figure out like what's really going on in his life. And I think what makes a book also binge worthy is like if there's usually like if it's a thriller or a mystery or something, and as you get closer to the end, like the tensions start rising and everything. So I think tension is also something that makes a book good, and makes it like really quick and fast to read or binge worthy, I guess. So I think this book also has a lot of that. Speaking of tension, the next book is one that I thought had a lot of it, and it made for a really great and fast-paced read. And I also talked about this in my last video, but that is No Exit by Taylor Adams. This one is about this girl named Derby who is driving home, I think home at least, from her college, and she's caught in a snowstorm. And because of the snowstorm, she has to stop over at this rest stop for a night, and in the process of doing that, she finds this white van outside the rest stop that's hiding a kidnapped little girl. And so the story is following her as she's trying to figure out like what happened to this girl and who's the cause of this. It's kind of like a closed room, I don't know if that's the word, mystery, because she's at this rest stop and there's only like a few other characters, like a very limited cast of characters at this rest stop who are also stuck there as well because of the snowstorm. So she knows that it has to be one of them, so she is basically trying to figure out who is behind all this. I did also mention this in my last video, but this book is like kind of marketed to be like a mystery of her trying to figure out what's happening, but I think it's really a lot more of a thriller. In my opinion, she finds out who is involved like pretty quickly on. Like the whole book isn't her trying to figure out like who's really behind this. She figures that out pretty quickly, and the rest of the novel is really her trying to survive in this rest stop. And the reason that makes for a very good like high tension fast-paced novel is because they're all trapped in this one area, and so because of a snowstorm you can't really escape either. You're kind of stuck in this one place, so she had to kind of figure out how to survive the potential suspect that she has discovered. And obviously once she figures it out, and once the suspect knows that she's figured it out, things obviously take a very dangerous turn, and it just ends up being a very fast-paced novel, especially towards the end. And there's like a lot of honestly gruesome violence as well, and a lot more gruesome than I thought it would be. But I thought it was such a great paced novel, especially towards the end. I was quite literally on the edge of my seat trying to, or like wanting to know what happened next, because like the way the author created this like dangerous scenario, especially with like it being very close quarters, I think it it made for a really great story. So yeah, I think because of the tension that this builds, especially towards the end and her trying to figure out everything as well, I think this is also a really great novel to sit and read in like 1 or 2 sittings and just get through really quickly. The next book is very different from the past 2 books that I read, and I feel like this isn't gonna be not a recommendation for everybody, and it is a pretty old recommendation. This is more for people that haven't really read this before, I guess. But that is The Selection by Kira Cass. This one is a novel that came out a long time ago, and I'm sure everyone's heard of it. So The Selection takes place, if you don't know, in this world where everyone is kind of like in different castes, and in order to like get out of a caste, there's like certain girls that are chosen for this thing called a selection. It's basically like The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. So yeah, our main character, America, is chosen to be taking part of this selection, and basically the winner of the selection gets to marry the prince. This is objectively not a very well written novel, but I will say that I have a lot of fun with it, and I reread it quite a bit just because of how much fun I think it is. I call this like a guilty read or a guilty pleasure read, just because like I know it's like not the greatest writing, and like of course it's like not the best book in the world, but I think I just have so much fun with it. You know, it's like The Bachelor. The Bachelor isn't like top notch like level of television, but people watch it because it's a trashy fun reality show that like is a lot of fun. So I think this kind of falls into that category of just like something you can read just for fun. So yeah, I think if you like really fall into the story, and because of just how much fun I have, and I read it fairly quickly just because of like also like the text is big, and it's like only a little bit above 300 pages, so I think this could also be a fast read to just read in a little bit because of how fun it is. The next recommendation I have is a collection of graphic novels, and that is the Heartstopper I guess series by Alice Oseman. So Heartstopper is also another very popular series that has been turned into a Netflix show as well. But if you don't know, it follows these 2 boys, Charlie and Nick, and their progression from like friendship to like a relationship basically, and I think it's very, very cute. The reason I put this on this list is because it's a graphic novel, and graphic novels are usually pretty quick to read. This one is also a very pure and very like soft and fluffy book. There's not really a lot of dark themes, especially in like the first couple of books. I think like 3 and 4 kind of deal with some darker themes like eating disorders and such, but this book, like the first book, is just purely, it's just cute, like 2 people like falling in love, starting a relationship, liking each other, having crushes. So it's like, because it's not really dark, it's also quick to get through. Like personally, I think it takes me probably like 30 minutes to an hour to get through this entire book, and that's just because there's a lot of photos, and the photos are, I think, pretty big as well. So it's a very fast read, and it's very cute, and it's good. And I also recommend the Netflix show as well, because that's also very cute, and I think season 2 is coming out very soon as well, so I'm very excited for that. The next book is a book that has been one of my favorites in the past couple of years, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This one I think was one of my favorites of 2021, or maybe it was 2022. I have no idea what year. I don't know what the years are anymore, but safe to say it is one of my favorite books I've ever read. So this one follows a high school senior named Pip, who is doing a senior project on the murder of this former student from her high school named Andy Bell. This murder took place like a few years ago, and everyone thinks that it was Andy's boyfriend Sal who killed her and then killed himself. And now Pip is reopening this case because she believes that something more could have happened, and that Sal wasn't the one to kill Andy. So she reopens this case and is trying to figure out what really happened during that. This book is also very popular, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. It is a murder mystery, so I think that aspect creates high tension and everything in itself. And one of the reasons I really love this book is because like it's a murder mystery and everything, the main focus of the story I think is really the mystery aspect of it. I know a lot of books that start like wandering off into different storylines, and usually there's like a romantic plot line that'll come in and take over for a little bit, but I think this one is directly focused on the mystery, and because of that it's just focused on Pip and the clues that she's finding, the evidence, and just like back to back of that, which I think just makes for a really fast-paced story. I mean, I haven't read a lot of like YA mystery thrillers, so I don't really know, I guess, too much. The only one I'm comparing it to was One of Us is Lying, where there was like a mystery aspect, but a lot of it was also very character focused, going into each character's like life and their story and then the relationships among the characters. But this one was just purely about the mystery itself, which I really enjoyed, and I'm so glad that it kept that theme for the other two books in the trilogy, because that trilogy was just overall so much fun to read. But yeah, if you're looking for like a fast-paced murder mystery, I would definitely recommend this one because it's just great. The next book is a little bit different. This time it's a mystery, not a mystery, a middle grade novel, and that is Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This one is such a good book. This one is about a girl named Morgan Crow who is like about 11 years old, and she was born on Eventide, or is it Evertide? It's Eventide. She was born on Eventide, which is like the most cursed day to be born on, and because of that she's destined to die at the end of the next age. Basically this world is in ages, so every age is like 10-11 years, I think. So she's cursed to die. But then that day comes around and she doesn't die. Instead she's taken off to this like magical land called Nevermore, where she's like trying to join the secret society. But this, I will say that these, like, this is like a series, and I will say the books aren't like that short, but the text is like pretty big. But I think just because it's a middle grade, it already means that it's fast to read, at least for me. And I think this is also like such a fun story because it's a middle grade. It's about this 11-year-old girl, and she's like finding this new world, and she's making friends, and she's making all these like relationships with all these fun people in this world. So I think just overall that just makes for a really fun time. I've probably said the word fun a lot so far, but I just don't have any other word. This was just a blast to get through, and I think each book honestly just keeps getting better and better in my opinion, because just the way the story's going, I just have such a good time every time, and I'm so excited for the rest of the books in the series. I think the theme is, for me so far, is that either it's like a murder mystery that'll keep me on my toes, or it's like a fun book that just because it's like so fun I don't want to put it down, which I guess is really telling me like what I find a binge-worthy book, which is interesting because I didn't really think about that before I made this video, to be honest. Anyway, Nevermore, it's really fun and it's easy to get through, and if you're like above the age of the middle grade age range, I think this will already be like a really quick read, just because like those books are usually faster to read if you're like above the age range. Even if you're like above the age, like I'm not saying this is just for the middle grade people, I'm saying that even if you're like an adult or like if you read YA mostly, I think that you'll still have a really great time if you read this. And the last book I'll be talking about is one I read a few years ago, and that is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I'm so sad because just a few days ago Hank Green announced that he has cancer, so it is the most like treatable form of cancer, I believe, but he still has cancer, which is really sad, and I hope the best for him. But this one is a really weird book. It's about this girl named April May, I think, and one day she's like going home or something, and she sees this like really weird statue, like really gigantic huge statue just appears out of nowhere, and she like videos the statue and she posts it, and it goes viral overnight. And then suddenly like people, I think, are starting to see these same statues like all over the world, and now people are trying to figure out what's really happening, where did they come from, and everything. So part of this book is trying to figure out what's really happening with all the statues, and then the other part is her like dealing with the fame of suddenly becoming viral overnight and everything, which is like creating an interesting story. But my favorite part was really the mystery, I guess, aspect of it, which was the fact that she's trying to figure out these statues, and they're like called Carls for some reason, I don't remember, but she's trying to figure out where these like statues and Carls came from. And because it's so weird, like while I was reading this, I truly could not think of what would happen next, just because the way things have been going were so weird that I just could not even come up with it if I wanted. But I think that's why it makes for a really good like binge read or like a really quick read, because in my opinion, if you don't know what's gonna happen next and you can't even like predict it, it's just, at least for me, makes me want to keep reading to see what's gonna happen and what other weird stuff is gonna happen. So yeah, this one combined both the mystery aspect and the fun aspect of me, because just like the stuff that was happening of like the weird stuff just made for like a weird and fun time, and then the mystery aspect of her trying to figure out like where did these big statues come from. So I think combining the two things I mentioned, which is like a mystery and like a fun book, into one book is a great way to end off the video. But yeah, those are 7 books that I am recommending to binge read this summer. Let me know down below if you read any of these books, and if you did, let me know what you thought of them, and if you have any other recommendations for me for books that you think are great to binge read, or just like good books in general to read, I would love to know. But that is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.